how many four-letter words can I use on that?
Transfers to a double. Cheddar is driving. Nothing yet. Takedown, Michael Cheddar.
Oh, Nick, I'm a top guy, so I love top wrestling.
Hale trying to stick him. He does. Maximus Hale the fall.
So I think that wrestling is the greatest sport on earth.
What's going on, everybody? It's Nick Kosko for On3 Sports, another edition of On3 Wrestling. With me today is Princeton head coach Joe Dubuque. Coach, appreciate the time. It's been quite the run for you guys as of the last couple of weeks. Year one is in the books for you. Year two right around the corner. It's been an exciting summer. Glad to have you on. Rising program once again in Princeton wrestling. I got to start out, though. The summer performances from some of your current guys, some of your alums, really stood out. Quincy Monday, Matt Colazzo going on the Olympic trials. I got to imagine this summer has been a nice little upswing right here for the Princeton Tigers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first, thanks for having me on, Nick. Appreciate it. Yeah, it was exciting. I guess the RTC has had a long journey since the inception in 2017, which started in, basically like a little banquet hall. Just us pitching the idea that we can have an RTC and we can get guys on the Olympic team and get an Olympic champion. And then, 2021 was basically the first Olympic trials we were able to compete in. We, at that time, I think we only had one qualifier who was Nate Jackson. And then this past 2024 Olympic team trials, we have 4 guys in there from the RTC. So exciting. We had some good performances. We had some bad performances, but I think, again, it's just the trajectory that not only the university program has been on, but also the RTC. So a lot to work on, a lot to build off of, but, just in general, exciting things happening in Princeton.
Without a doubt. You mentioned the NJRTC. I was going to circle back to this later, but I'll ask you now because it's been a rising regional training center, especially within the great state of New Jersey. I know at one point, it was a partnership with Rutgers, with the SKWC and NJRTC kind of coming together. You guys are now you're pretty much your own thing. You've had homegrown guys. You've brought guys in. You mentioned Nate Jackson. I want to also throw out there Reese Humphrey and obviously CJ Bruckey as well. What are those guys? What have they have meant to you, the program, the senior level athletes, and obviously the guys who you are recruiting and bringing into Princeton for the foreseeable future? What have those guys meant to the program?
Yeah, I mean, they were the foundation, right? They were the first guys to really buy into the vision of what we could do at Princeton and through the RTC. So, they're forever the founding fathers of the NJRTC. And I think it was within 2 years we had 2 world team members in Pat Downey and Tyler Graff. So, again, they mean a lot to us. And it's always good to I guess point back to what we had when we started and where we're at and where we're going. So again, those guys are really important. And then obviously Reese Humphrey has been at the top of the RTC from the beginning. So what he's done with the guys that he's had is pretty remarkable. Pat Downey probably was wrestling his best wrestling under Reese Humphrey, and same thing with Tyler Graff. And the leaps, the levels that Nate Jackson has jumped since being under Reese's kind of tutelage has been pretty remarkable. And I think it's great. And I think, again, we only continue to look at where we're going, especially with the new guys with Quincy Monday. Starting his Olympic journey. Same thing with Yaya Thomas. And then you have a veteran like Chance Marsteller, who's made a world team and probably disappointed with how he finished at the Olympic team trial. So I know he's absolutely very hungry to make another world team and be a world champ and kind of get him back on track for this next quad. So again, like I said, man, I'm super excited about what we're doing. not only through the university team, but the RTC. And I think any guy who's serious about trying to make a world team and be a world champ should be looking at Princeton, New Jersey. And I think it's definitely proven that we can do it. If guys are serious and serious about, doing those awesome things, then this is a place that they should be serious about looking at.
You guys have produced some high quality athletes and really have helped guys improve their wrestling year to year. That is for sure. So talking about, you mentioned the university stuff as well. Senior level stuff, of course, Paris Olympics coming up, and of course the next cycle. You're always preparing for the next cycle. But for your specific team, you just finished up year one. The staff is now reloaded. Cody Brewer, Anthony Ashnault, Nate Jackson make up your coaching staff loaded. I know there's been a lot of conversation over the last couple of weeks of what you've been able to put together. I'll go in order right now, starting with Cody Brewer. What does he bring to the table? We know how good he was in college as well. How excited are you to have him at Princeton University for this upcoming season?
I'm really excited about him. He brings the most coaching experience out of the other two guys. But he's still young. I think he's very eager to learn. I told this story, before, just kind of, when the idea of Cody, possibly coming on staff, or when I really kind of identified him as a guy, my number one prospect to come in and be on the staff with me. It probably happened like 2 summers ago. It seemed like I was always, when I was on the road, I always saw this guy on the road, talking to the best guys and just the hustle that he has. And then just talking with him. I mean, he's got a great personality and has a great vision just for, when he was at Virginia Tech, it was a great vision there. And he was really bought in to making that program one of the best programs in the country. So for me, it was like, I need to sit down with this guy and share my vision with him and see if he kind of fits in with that. And I think us talking together, I think we see a lot of things in line with each other. Like we see eye to eye on a lot of things. And, but I also think he's a little bit different than me, which I like. And I want guys who are going to be a little bit different than I am and bring a unique perspective. So, Cody Brewer, again, has shown that he's probably the best lightweight coach in the country, helped Virginia Tech recruit some of the best guys in the country. So for me, I'm very fortunate. I have a guy that has a ton of experience. I can let him off the leash and really kind of do some damage in that respect. And then just, in the room, I think he brings a great energy to our guys. He's young. Like I said, he's got a great personality. He connects with our guys, and he can still scrap, man. He's in there rolling with guys and being willing to throw a lot of points out. Like he says, that's one of his biggest things. He wants guys who score a lot of points, and he definitely lives by that in the room. So really, really excited for him to be on our staff.
Before I get into the other two guys, you mentioned how you wanted it. You like that he's a little bit different than you, whether that's wrestling style or personality wise. Why do you like that? And were you like that before you became a head coach, when you were coaching under Chris Ayers before he went to Stanford? Is that kind of the dynamic you two shared during his time at Princeton when you guys worked together?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you were around me and Chris, Chris is real. He's laid back. He's chill, like kind of calm. And me, I'm a little bit out of my mind. So I need somebody who kind of balances me out. And, but I think Cody has a great energy, which is definitely something I was looking for. But I think he's definitely a little bit more of that chill, that calm, type of personality. Don't get me wrong. He definitely has that side of that intensity and that comes out, which is awesome. But I think that's kind of where he's just a little bit different than me. And it's good because I want guys on my staff that's going to push back against me on some things. I don't need yes men. I don't need guys just falling into line. And I think that's something that me and Chris had a great relationship. There was times where I think he really did appreciate me, again, pushing him in some areas and really making him think about some different things. So that's what I want. And I think me and Chris had a great relationship and we were able to, help build this program to where it is today. And now I want guys where I can really create that same relationship and take this program to the next level.
Another guy who could take your program to the next level, Jersey legend, Rutgers legend, national champion, 4-time All-American, Anthony Ashnault. Big splash hire. I think the wrestling world, for those who weren't hearing the rumblings, they were maybe taken aback. We're like, wow, that's a big one, because Ashnault had just coming off another run trying to get to the Olympic trials. He's been competing for as long as we can remember. He was a coach briefly for 1 year on the Rutgers staff. What went into this hire with Ashnault? When did you identify him as a guy that you had to have on your staff? And I'm curious how that conversation went, considering he decided to go into coaching. And he's like, you know what? I want to go full throttle and compete again. And then he was bouncing all around the East Coast trying to get back to the Olympic trials. What was that conversation like with Anthony?
Yeah, so I think it was probably late fall that I kind of, we opened up the positions, wanted to see kind of who was interested, and just the timing of it all. I knew I probably wasn't going to get the best pool of candidates. So after about a week and a half, I kind of closed it off and I said, hey, we're going to go through the season with who we have on staff. And then I'll try to identify some guys that I would love to interview and apply for the positions probably in the spring after the NCAA tournament. And then I guess it was probably right in the beginning of the season, probably November or December. I forget who I was talking to, said, hey, man, I think you should reach out to Anthony Ashnault. I think he's trying to get into coaching. And I was like, well, he was coaching at Rutgers and then, left to compete. And I know he had sort of like a media brand. So I didn't know if that was what, where his journey was taking him, right? I didn't know if he wanted to just, after he was done competing, to try and grow his brand a little bit more and do the media thing. So I was like, well, I'll definitely reach out to him and see if he's interested. And I gave him a call and said, hey, I'm going to have a few positions open in the spring, and you're definitely a guy I would love to apply and see if this is something that you would want to pursue. And he said, absolutely. He said, I'm definitely getting into coaching. And I would definitely love to, talk to you and see what your vision is. I think, being in New Jersey was perfect for him. And I think that was something he wanted to do and wanted to stay in New Jersey. So that's kind of how the ball got rolling. And then, once the season ended, I reached out to him again and said, hey, man, are you still in to apply? And he said, yeah. And so then it kind of went from there.
When you look at what he can bring to the room, and you mentioned, I don't know if his competition career is over yet. I would only imagine the competition fire he has in him. He's going to try and make one more run at the Olympics, but I can only imagine for him as a coach, as a growing recruiter on staff, and then just a guy who can scrap in the room. I got to imagine he's going to be doing pretty much everything for you on that staff as a coach, recruiter, and a guy who's still going to compete and train and obviously help grow the young guys while maybe simultaneously improving his own wrestling.
So just from a competition standpoint, he's done. He's retired. And that was kind of a big thing for me is I said, hey, this program is not, we're not at the place where we need a coach competing anymore. We have a great RTC. If that's something that you want to do, then you can absolutely go into the RTC. But for me, it was like, I need 4 guys, including myself, to be operating at full capacity, right? I don't need you splitting time between training and recruiting and, fundraising and doing all these things. It's like, hey, I need you all in at Princeton. And he was all in. He said, you know what, I put in my time. I feel like I gave it a great run to make an Olympic team and win an Olympic gold, and it just didn't happen. So now he's turning his focus solely into coaching and trying to make Princeton wrestling one of the best programs in the country. He is so driven, and I think his youth and his motivation is just, it's really, for me, it's like inspiring because he wants to do so many things. And he's really kind of he's wanting direction, and he wants to, again, take a lot on his plate. And I'm trying to ease him into it a little bit. And he's like, he just wants more. He wants more. And I mean, him in the room is amazing. Like he's a mat rat. He wants to be on the mat. He wants to be, I told him, I said, hey, you actually need to pull back a little bit. I was like, as much as I want you scrapping with the guys every single day, like I actually would love for you to kind of be just pull yourself outside and be those pair of eyes that can, look at 4 groups and help them and dissect what they're doing wrong and improve from there. Right. Where if you're wrestling with one guy, you're helping one guy, which is great. Right. Which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're doing that every single day, then you're kind of limiting the impact that you can have on the whole team. So that was, and he was kind of surprised because he thought I would just want him in there, like, literally scrapping every single day. And I said, hey, the time will come where you're going to be wrestling a lot, right? You're young. He absolutely still has it. I mean, again, it's pretty amazing. I saw it from, the visitors bench, what he can do on the mat. And now I'm fortunate to be, I have that opportunity to sit next to him and see the impact that he can have on Princeton wrestlers. So again, he brings so much. And I think I touched on it before, his brand recognition and how he grew his own brand. I'm excited to just hear some of the ideas that he has on how to grow the Princeton wrestling brand. So like those things that, sort of like what I was doing when I was in that assistant role, he's going to probably take a lot of that. And so I'm really excited to, again, it's getting fresh new ideas and getting, 3 new guys, even though Nate's been a part of our program for a while, but he was really kind of, focusing on himself. Now he's able to focus on the program and kind of see what are the areas that we can really improve and how those guys individually can kind of insert themselves into those roles. So exciting times, man. I'm so pumped. I can't wait. I'm like itching for November right now.
I was just about to say, is it 5 months from now already? I mean, come on. So, Anthony, obviously great hire. I could easily see him being a head coach in a few years at this point, with how you described him. Nate Jackson, to round out the staff. You already mentioned he's an OG. He's been around the program for quite a bit now. You mentioned as an athlete, tremendous athlete, and it seems like he only just gets better every year somehow. What was the thought process behind him, and just kind of, you mentioned how he was focusing on himself, not in a selfish way, but, it's an individual sport. He wanted to be competing at the highest level. What did it take to get him onto the staff in an official capacity and saying, hey, we want you to round out this staff. It's me. It's these 3 guys. We're all going to work together. How did that come about for Nate Jackson?
Yeah, I think it, and I was sensitive to his goals, right? And I didn't want to, not influence, but I didn't want to put anything else on his plate while he was competing. So I did tell him, though, I told him basically in the beginning of the fall, I said, hey, I'm going to have a position open after the Olympic team trials. I go, I don't want you thinking about it right now. I go, but if that's something you're interested in, like, you're my guy. And I said, I don't want you to be thinking about that. I want you to be thinking about being an Olympic champion. So basically he knew that, if going into coaching and staying around Princeton was what he wanted to do, he would absolutely have that opportunity with me. So that, I think that kind of eased his mind a little bit. And then once the Olympic team trials ended, me and him met again, and I just wanted to kind of be like, hey, is this still what you're wanting to do? Because I didn't know if, the disappointment of not making an Olympic team was going to remotivate him to try and go another quad. And I told him, I said, hey, if you want to wrestle for 4 more years, you will always have that opportunity here at the NJRTC. That. But he said, hey, he's like, I put everything I had into it the last 2-3 years, specifically. I mean, even though he's been training for a lot longer than that, but I think he really zoned in on, this 2024 Olympic team trials. And he said, you know what, I don't want to focus on me anymore. He goes, I actually want to shift the spotlight to the guys and my focus to the guys. So in that respect, we were on the same page. And then with me, with my, why I was like, hey, Nate would be perfect for this, is I think it would be a seamless transition because he was here in that volunteer role for about 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So he knew the terminology, he knows the vision, he knows what makes Princeton great. So I think for me, it would be good to have that guy who was already in the know. And I didn't completely have to, educate him on the ins and outs of Princeton, right? Like he was almost another resource for me to help the other guys. Like there's things, if I couldn't help them right now, it's like, I feel comfortable with Nate, like kind of bringing them along on what were some of the things we did in the past as a staff. And so that really made sense to me. And then, he's a killer, man. I mean, he's an absolute killer on the mat. Just again, the jumps that he made on the senior level were amazing. And I see, again, even though he was very focused on himself, even in those RTC practices where our college guys were in there, he's still helping those guys, right? It's like it's in him, right? And I'm like, this dude is going to be an amazing coach, and I would be foolish to not, be able to keep this guy here in Princeton. So he's going to be able to, work with the upper weights, which is something we haven't had for about 3 years. We haven't had a guy on staff who can really get in there and work with our bigger guys, like Luke Stout. I think for Luke to have Nate Jackson 24/7, 7 days a week, in his corner, I think that's going to help Luke break through, be an All-American, get on that podium, and contend to be a national champion. So so many things made sense in regards to bringing Nate Jackson on staff.
Joe Dubuque, Princeton's wrestling head coach, with me on On3 Wrestling. You mentioned Luke Stout going back to last year, 3 NCAA qualifiers for you guys in 2024 to take you to KC in year 1 under your guidance. I know last year for you guys, it was a bit of a rebuilding year, retooling, however you want to describe it. Obviously, Coach Ayers leaves for the opportunity at Stanford. You step in, and now you're molding the program into your vision. And again, it happens with a lot of wrestling programs. You go in waves. That's the way it's always been. But you guys have had success recently, obviously with Pat Glory winning a national title, Quincy Monday being an NCAA finalist. You guys have had years where you've had multiple All-Americans as well. When you go and have a year like that last year, where there's some individual success, but the team success eluded you a little bit more than it has in recent years. What do you attribute that to? What was the mood like for the team and in the locker room last year? And did you ultimately say, you know what, we're going to take our lumps, but this is going to be a long-term vision of how we rebuild this thing?
I think even approaching the season with the staff that was in place with Chris Ayers running the program, we knew that we were going to have a young team, which was exciting though, right? Because, you never know how these young guys are going to respond and how they're going to develop throughout the year. So even though I knew we were going to be young, I knew that it was going to be exciting, right? And, I was looking forward to seeing the development of these young guys. So, from an expectation standpoint, I think it was right about where we thought we were going to be. I think we could have gotten a few more wins here and there and maybe gotten a guy closer to the podium at the NCAA tournament. But there was a lot of things that it was almost like a perfect storm, not in a good way though, kind of a bad way. So just with, the timing of me getting the job and, we were kind of short-handed with the staff, and then staff leaving, and then me trying to bring Reese on during the middle of the season. Again, there was some things that were not in place, and I think the guys kind of felt it a little bit. But the thing that I love the most is that the guys stepped up, and the guys helped me in a lot of areas. Because again, even though Quincy Monday was on staff, I told him, I said, hey, your job is to, help the program out as best as possible. But I want you focusing on yourself too. He's trying to get ready for the Olympic team trial. So, the way that it was supposed to work out when he initially decided to come on staff last year was that, you have Chris Ayers, myself, and Sean Gray, who are very experienced coaches. We can take a lot of the, a bulk of the administrative work and stuff like that, and really kind of let Quincy, just train, help out the team, kind of, get his feet wet a little bit with the coaching. But we didn't really have much expectations for him to do office work and recruiting and things like that. So when I took the job, I didn't want that to change, right? I wasn't going to sacrifice his training, for him to do some recruiting stuff. I basically took that on, and I was fine with it because I knew I didn't want to see Quincy suffer because of the situation. So a lot of things just kind of, I don't know, didn't fall our way, but I'm not worried about it. I'm so excited about this staff. And I think with the guys that we have coming off of their year off, I think it's going to be an immediate impact. And I think it's going to be a total 180 from last year of being a young and almost kind of inexperienced team to kind of being an experienced team, right? And all those young guys now having a year under their belt and knowing what college wrestling is and how to train and what to expect. I mean, we're coming out the gate firing, dude. I expect my expectations for this year is going to be way higher. So, again, it was a great learning experience for me though, because I was basically doing 3 other jobs plus my own, and it was stressful without a doubt. But now being a head coach, now I know what each guy needs to be focusing on and what area they need to really put all their effort in, or a lot of their effort in, to help the program grow. So even though it was tough, it was probably one of the toughest years of my coaching career. It was a great learning experience without a doubt.
Hey, you mentioned now the expectation is going to be a lot bigger, have a lot more success here in 24, 25 with the staff you have in place. I saw your recruiting class, the class of 28 that's coming in this year, looking really good. A Princeton class of 28, of course, but they're coming in, loaded group of guys. You mentioned guys coming back that did not wrestle for you last year. What can you say about this roster going into this coming fall and winter compared to last year, where you're just like, oh, now we have a loaded roster, we have depth across the board, and again, going back to your comment about expectations now being much higher for year 2.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about the guys coming off of a year off, you have Mark Anthony McGowan, who was one of the best guys in the country coming out of high school. He's probably going to slot in at 125. Really excited about him. Obviously, unfortunate about what happened to him last fall. He got into a scooter accident and wound up putting him out about 5 to 6 months. So basically took his whole season away, but, he was able to unenroll from school and not use a year of eligibility, which was great. And take that time to heal up and rehab so that he's back to 100%. So he's, training really hard in the RTC, and he'll be ready to hit the ground running in September. So really excited about him. I think that kind of gives Drew Heatice an opportunity to move up to 133, probably his more natural weight.
Right.
He sacrificed a lot for the team last year, where we didn't have a 25-pounder with Mark Anthony going down. And he, again, he made the sacrifice and cut down to 125. And I thought he did a great job. And I think, again, towards the end of the year, it really became too much for him. And we all recognized that, and he recognized it. It is what it is. Again, I think it's a learning experience. I think he definitely got a lot out of last year, and I think we're going to see a different animal out of him, next season. 41, 49. It's going to be a little bit of a log jam. We've got, a lot of really good guys in those 2 spots. You'll have Tyler Vasquez, Eli Rivera, Jake Mann, and then also Ty Whalen. So trying to figure out who goes where. I would say right now, just kind of who has the head up, the lead on the 49 spot is probably Ty Whalen, just because of his performance last year, winning the Midlands Championship, beating 2 eventual All-Americans. Is pretty good, but we're going to do this in the right way. I know Eli wants to wrestle Ty off. He'll absolutely have that opportunity, and we'll see how that shakes out. Same thing with Tyler Vasquez. I think he's thinking about, possibly taking a year off or at least, seeing what his weight is and whether he can get down to 41. And then you have junior Jake Mann, who was wrestling pretty well towards the end of last year, but then again sustained a season-ending injury that kind of took him out of the running at 141. So again, whoever's at 41 or 49, I feel totally confident that they can compete to be All-Americans and a national champ. So we'll be really fortunate there. 57, we have some things that we have to figure out. Don't really know what's going to happen there. 65, probably Blaine Berge will probably man that spot. Holden Garcia, who was a freshman this past year, state champ out of Pennsylvania. He also sustained a pretty significant injury right in the middle of the season. That's going to put him out for next year. So he's probably going to be in a year off, just recovering from that injury. But again, I think he can definitely make some big jumps during that year off. That'll help him come back, again, competing to be an All-American and a national champ that next year. 74 is going to be there's going to be some opportunity for young guys to get in the lineup, and then also guys who haven't been in the lineup. Nate Stefanik will be a senior next year for us, so it'll be a good opportunity for him to get into the lineup, or Xavier Giles, who will be a true freshman for us. So again, opportunity for guys who have never been in the lineup and see what they can do. Cole Mulhauser will be moving up from 74 to 84. He was on a year off, like Ty Whalen was last year. He won the Michigan State Open. I think he majored the Michigan starter, who was 3rd or 4th at Big Tens. I forget what his name is, but again, has some pretty good wins. Was a U20 world team trial qualifier. So again, I think he's made some huge jumps, and I think going up to 84 is going to really help him unleash his athleticism and give him a chance to wrestle really, really hard for 7 minutes, which is something that he was struggling with when he was down at 74. And then you have Luke Stout. He's manned the weight for 3 years, and I know he's absolutely ready to break through. I think he's excited for his senior year. I think talking with him, he's putting everything behind him. The last 3 years, he doesn't even want to think about it. He just wants to think about what's in front of him and what he has to do to achieve his goal of being a national champ. And I think we've all known that he has all the ability in the world to do that. And now I think it's for us putting some resources and some pieces around him that's going to really help him make that jump. And then heavyweight's going to also open up some opportunity for Sebastian Garibaldi, who's kind of been behind Matt Cover and then Travis Stefanik the year before that. But then also opened the door for a true freshman. Will Sather was a 2-time Minnesota State champ coming out of high school, for Fargo national finalist. So again, I think there's going to be some youth, some experience, and I think a ton of talent in this Tiger lineup next year.
Looks like a really well-balanced lineup for 24-25. A couple more for you, Coach, and I'm interested in your take on this, considering when people think of Ivy League wrestling, they immediately think Cornell. I know other schools have been trying to change that as of late, especially you guys with your success at the national tournament as well. But the Ivy League announced that wrestling tournament, individual wrestling tournament for the postseason. What was your initial reaction to that, knowing that it's no longer EIWAs and it's now the Ivy League wrestling tournament just between those schools going into NCAAs?
I think wrestling people are always traditionalists, right? So I think the first time, even when I heard that we were thinking about doing this, I think I had a knee-jerk reaction of like, oh my God, no, we can't do this. The EIWA is been traditionally one, second or third best conference in the country. What are we thinking we're going to do? But then when I sat back and I actually just listened to all the positives that could come out of us creating an Ivy League tournament, I was like, this is a no-brainer. So, for us, we looked at the numbers, right? You go back to the data and the analytics and everything like that. I think when you look at the pre-allocations for this past year, it was between 46 and 48% of the pre-allocated spots were by Ivy League wrestlers. And then after with the wild cards, I think it jumped up to almost like 49%. So we were doing almost basically half the work of getting national qualifiers to the NCAA tournament, but still have to go through a 2-day 17-team grind of a tournament. And I think we were talking about, it's like it would have had to been, you have to win like 4 or 5. Like if you were the number 1 seed at the EIWA tournament, you had to win like 4 or 5 matches to take 4th. If they were top 4, but then you go to the Ivy League tournament, you got to win 1. The second seed is going to get a bye to the semis. You either win the semis match or you drop that match and you got to win your Conci semis. So it just made sense from, again, if we're doing all the work, why aren't we just wrestling against each other? Instead of, and again, the EIWA has got a lot of landmines, man. I mean, it's got a lot of tough teams with, and even the teams that maybe might not have the depth, they always got 3 or 4 really good guys that you got to go through to get to the quarters, to get to the semis. So as much as the history and the tradition was there, and for Princeton specifically, I mean, I think we were one of the founding fathers or the founding programs of the EIWA championship. So I know my alumni weren't happy at first, but I think the more I'm talking to them and explaining to them that this is the best thing for Princeton wrestling, and it's the best thing for the Ivy League wrestling programs in general, they're getting behind it. And I think everybody sees the trend of Ivy League programs. Everybody is getting better within the Ivy League every year. Again, Brown is going to be good. Harvard always has guys who are competing to be All-Americans. Columbia, look at what Columbia just did. Penn has always been a traditionally really tough team, who's placing the top 3 EIWAs and sending, 9-10 guys to the NCAA championship. So as a whole, the Ivy League wrestling has a great brand and great brand recognition. So again, I think if we could put a great production together, and it's our job as Princeton athletics in general, because we're going to be hosting the first ever Ivy League tournament. I think if we really knock it out the park the first year, it's going to be one of the best. It's going to be one of the best tournaments in the country.
I can only imagine, since you guys are going to be the host school for the first year, just a 1-day tournament of absolute bananas of these 6 schools just going after each other, trying to get those automatic spots to NCAAs, which brings me to my last point and the last question I have for you, Coach, and I appreciate your time, of course. The individual tournament's always the talk. I have to ask every coach, everybody I talk to, wrestler, coach, media person, I have to ask, because I'm a dual meet guy. A lot of guys are dual meet guys. Dual meet championship, yes or no, for a team championship in NCAAs before the individual postseason?
I think I'm just kind of neutral. But if I need to give an answer, I would say no.
Interesting. Okay.
Honestly, it's not for any reason. I know what I hear all the reasons that people give, and they're all good, right? And I don't think either one is going to hurt. But I guess for me personally, I came from a program in Indiana University where we weren't a great dual meet team. But man, we had 3 or 4 individuals that could be All-Americans and do some really great things. So my junior year, I don't even know what our dual meet record was. I don't think we had a winning record in the Big Ten, but we placed 9th in the country. With 3 individuals, and again, I was, and then that's something that was hugely impactful for me on my career. Like that was something I'm really proud of as a team. So I'm not for or against it. I just think also it has to make sense. Adding more wrestling. Here's the thing. Also, I do think that we need to wrestle more, just from a sport perspective.
Right.
There's so many guys who are going into the NCAA tournament. They don't even have 20 matches, and it's like, what are we doing? Like we're trying to showcase our sport. You got to wrestle. Like we got to wrestle, and I think that's something like at Princeton. Like my whole time here, we've been promoting, anyone, anywhere, anytime, and it's something we've stuck with, and we're not afraid of that. I just would like to I guess the same thing, like with the Ivy League tournament, right? I would like to hear more about it before like really getting behind one thing or the other. But what I wouldn't ever do is I would never say the team tournament is the NCAA champs. Like I can't crowning the individual national champ as the NWCA national champ. I can't get behind that because I just can't. Because every kid, not every kid's dream is to be an Olympic champ, but a lot of kids who get into wrestling is to be an NCAA champ. That's something that they are like, they dream about. And that's what I dreamed about, right? That was something that I was like, that's what I want to be. And so if that was the give and take of it, I wouldn't be behind it.
That's an interesting take, and I do agree with that point, even just from a name and brand recognition of it. I think more so, at least some of the people that I talk to want to say the team champion, your NCAA team champion is through the dual meet, but you still have NCAA individual champions. But again, then you get into the whole mess of how does the NCAA sponsor one or the other, and obviously then you go down a big rabbit hole. But I appreciate and respect your view on that, considering you're not for, but you're also not against. So maybe one day we will convince you in a couple of years. Right. But again, I think what you guys at Princeton are doing, because you just mentioned the anytime, anywhere mentality. I think that is what more programs need to do. And I love your point about you just need to wrestle more. I think if more people wrestle more, then you have, I think, just more recognition of what these guys have accomplished throughout the entire year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Head coach Joe Dubuque with me here on On3 Wrestling. Coach, appreciate the time. Great conversation. Looking forward to seeing you guys this winter. I'll have to make my way up to Jadwin Gym a couple more times this coming season. It was quite the experience the first time seeing you bounce around as head coach this time and not just going nuts and Ayers trying to hold you back a little bit.
Well, Nick, before I go, I just want to say I appreciate what you do for wrestling, and I mean for Rutgers wrestling, it's phenomenal. When I do watch a broadcast and I'm listening to you, you're so knowledgeable, you're passionate about again Rutgers wrestling, but also just wrestling in general. So I know I appreciate you, even though sometimes you're rooting against the Tigers. That's okay, but I think but again I think we need people more like you that are passionate about the sport and who showcase wrestling in such a an entertainment spotlight sort of way. And so just know that what you're doing is totally appreciated by a lot of people and valued. So thank you very much for again giving me the platform and giving me a chance to talk about Princeton and the future of our program. So I really do appreciate it.
I appreciate that too, Coach. We'll definitely have you back on as the season gets closer, and of course, when you guys are basically dominating the Ivy League. I can't wait for the Ivy League tournament. That is something I'm looking forward to this coming winter for sure. So, Coach, thanks again.
Thanks, Nick.